speaker mentioned, still controlled by American and European countries, then the SDR policy, SDR monetary policy, will still be a copy of the American or European monetary policy, or implement the political will of the European and American governments. So in the end, the SDR plan would not be popular among Asian countries, at least. Okay, so substantial IMF reform has to be done. Also, the U.S. commitment is very, very important. Arguably, in order for the SDR reform to be popular, the U.S. has to agree to give up part of its influence as an international monetary issuer. And this is very, very difficult. And in my mind, the SDR plan is not likely to be effective in the near future. The main reason is the USA, is the U.S. government. And it's ironical that on the one hand, the financial crisis exposed the problems of the current international monetary system in the sense that the U.S. dollar being too important. Okay. Meanwhile, it is because of the financial crisis, the U.S. government is least willing right now to give up its control of U.S. dollar being the international currency, being the most important international currency, because the U.S. government credit needs the support of the U.S. dollar to continue to be the international currency. Therefore, its government debt, its U.S. Treasury bond can be continued to be issued, to be purchased in the international market. So U.S. government is the key player in this SDR reform. Anyway, to sum up, I think the existing international monetary system does have problems, and the system is unlikely to be sustainable. And as a result, a multi-currency anchored system being very likely to emerge. And which are the currencies to emerge? I think euro certainly will be there. Euro is already very important. Which are the other currencies? I think Japanese yen, Korean won all are important, and the Chinese yuan is also a very likely candidate to be one of the currencies in the multi-currency system. And in this regard, we have to watch very carefully the reforms in China to allow the currency to be convertible in the capital account. And finally, SDR reform is very intriguing and very difficult, but worthwhile to explore. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. You touched on a number of very controversial issue areas. Key currency issue, in my view, is very critical, but it's very complicated issue. And in that regard, I think we use the term monopoly, as I think we have to be very careful. When we talk about monopoly, when you assume there is an entry barrier, but any country can have a currency and the market can use them. I don't think a market, anyone force anyone to use the US dollar. So I agree with you. And, creating SDR or whatever, the currency or unit of the account to be used, but then that involves global central bank issue, and whether you want to make real, because the central bank should be able to expand or contract the money supply, whether it's the SDR or whatever. So it is very rather complicated issue. It involves a very intensive discussion. But you did touch on this very critical issue. And I think, whether we like or not, the U.S. key currency will go on for some time, in my view, because market will dictate that. And when euro was first introduced, there were many economists who predicted that the euro will become the key currency in less than 10 years' time. But all the forecast was wrong, because market still wants the US dollar. So it is, we see the problem, but the solution, in my view, is not very easy. And we have to be quite careful about finding out the appropriate solution. Well, we're running out of time, and we have the last speaker, Mr. Tamura. Please.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this very important event. And in the middle of the campaign in Japan, I'm so much exhausted, but I get a break. Thank you. And let me briefly introduce myself in order to increase my credibility. I'm not a fashion model or I'm not a movie star. I'm a politician. And before becoming a politician, I was an investment banker. And right after that, I was a business owner. I'm a business lawyer in the US. And the reason why I wear like this is because my family business is the largest business to supplier in Japan. I'm modeling for my business. And after that, I become a president of the newspaper company in region of Japan. And I joined politics. As a politician, I was vice minister for financial affairs in the last administration. And I designed almost every countermeasures for the financial crisis done by current Japanese government. And now Japan is enjoying one of the fastest recovery in the stock market and real estate market. Partly maybe thanks to my idea, I don't know. So I talk like politicians, means very big picture and a very, how to say, dangerously simplified discussion. And if I talk like these smart people, I can't win in the election. So, I simplify, and I don't like repetition and duplication. So I try to focus on different perspective, and I give you the big picture. Of course, these financial turmoils, we have so many analysis and discussions already in many ways. I mean, media and the TV everywhere. But I make it simple. I find out the two reasons. One is we have the money on this planet. Second, we are greedy and we are stupid. This is the reason why we have this kind of problem. Still we have, big money on this planet. I mean, as of today, maybe more than 10 times bigger than the total sum of world GDP we have, thanks to the aging society taking place in developed economies and rapid growth in emerging economies, which has big population or the big amount of the precious resources such as oil, gas, and rare metals. We have big money. So if you have big money, you have more than enough, I take care of that. So big money should be put into some places, market, banks, investment banks, funds, or you put it into boxes, bury it into your garden. I don't know. But so you have to use those money. But compared to the size of money, we have less places for the opportunity for investment that contribute truly for the development of the society. Second, as to the second point, as I have mentioned, we are greedy, we are stupid. Investment bankers, I was investment bankers. I pretend we know everything, but we don't know. We almost know nothing. Investment bank business and fund business, they have to hire many people because size of money was increased at a very fast speed, and but event in the market is much more complex than the scientific experiment in the laboratory. So financial technology itself is very much premature study, but they pretend financial technologies, it's not the fault of the financial technology, but it's a fault of the users of the financial technologies. So in the market, it's not a chemical reaction, it's not a physical experiment. So people's anger, people's jealous, people's hatred regret, every, emotional effects is included in the market. So try to expect what will be happening in the market. It's very much difficult. As I have mentioned, the size is big. When the capital is scarce, we take very good care of the capital, but the money is not very scarce. We have more than enough money. So in order to satisfy the greedy people, the investment banks have to find out the opportunities by creating deformations, strains, the gap, the opportunity for the arbitrage intentionally in the gray zones. That is the reason. So this is, I think, the beginning. It's not becoming to the end or hitting bottom unless we amend the philosophy or the business model. We will be seeing the same thing or the worst event in the near future. So my countermeasure is we have to amend the business model of the investment banks, funds, and agents. Many years ago, the owner of the money is an investor, but right now, we hire directly or indirectly the agents. It's investment banks, or funds, hedge funds, or the private equity funds. So, of course, rating agency also. So we have to change the incentive system of the rating agency and the funds and the investment banks. And right now, incentive system is like that. The bigger returns you get, the bigger bonuses you get. The bigger losses you get, still you get a bigger bonus. So this is this accelerate the worst scenario happen in the market. So you have to share the responsibility. This kind of philosophy we should implement into the business model. And the rating agency also share the burden for their incentive system. And as a policymaker, we have to be ready for the fat tail programs, so-called fat tail programs. Event in the market is not like financial technology is about the statistics. Pure statistics always assume ordinary distribution. But as you may well know, the fat tail problems happens in the real world. It's totally different from the physics or chemical reaction experiment in the laboratory. So it's a government law to take care of the so-called fat tail problems. But at the same time, there's no right price in the market. You can't say this is the right price. Even in the luxury brand goods, anything can be a price. So, and in the democratic world, which I have in trouble back in Japan, the cooling down so-called bubble economy is tough job because heated economy seems always good and the heated market always seems good. But this is a challenge should be done by policymakers. And everybody touched upon the agenda, we have to reform the IMF. But IMF is about exchange rate and the monetary system. So I propose the new international organization to my Prime Minister when he leave for the very first G20 meeting right after the summit, right after the Lehman shock. And I proposed we have to set up the so-called World Stabilization Fund, and initiated by the Japanese initiative, and accumulate the foreign reserves, and pension money in the world, and hire the best professionals, not like bureaucrats in the IMF. IMF is this World Stabilization Fund should do more than currency and monetary system. Try to survey the market, try to intervene in the market if it is necessary, and try to do the, financial inspections to the financial institutions. And as to the country of Japan, we are ready to do more for stabilizing and kick our economy back to the track. Our economy means not only Japan's economy, but also the world economy and Asian economy. So it's like a campaign talk, but we do more for the people. We try to deregulate and try to, give more opportunities for the physical investment that will contribute to the truly development of the society, such as biotechnology, nanotechnologies, and environment technologies, food production technologies. And we try to increase the circulation of the money. We have largest chunk of the money inside Japan. And net asset amount is largest right now in the world. The Japan's, total asset held by the government and also individual household. Net means, total asset minus debt. That is largest. But, most of the money is sleeping in the banks and in the aged people. So we try to cut the tax concerning investment and try to accelerate the move of the money. We try to cut the gift tax, try to accelerate the money shift from generations. So right now in Japan, receivers of the inherited asset is over 70 years old. But that means money will be sleeping again in the aged people. So try to circulate the money, give more opportunity, and as they have mentioned, try to create the more, vast opportunity for the investment in the cross-country manner inside Asia. And thanks to maybe my idea, we launched so-called innovation fund last month. So government money should be invested by hiring best professionals in the area of the venture capital into new generation technologies. And we try to put more money from pension funds and foreign reserves. And so first, as I have mentioned, we have big money, but we have less opportunity for physical growth. But we try to make, bigger opportunity, many places to be invested. And we have to set up a new organization which will survey capital market and inspect the financial institutions if necessary. They do more than IMF. And we have to change the incentive system of the agent, the agent that invest the people's money in the market physically. And we have to come back to the basic philosophy of the investment. That means investment is a sacred action. Investment is a sacred action. Investment, you can get returns by taking risks in order to accelerate the development of the society. Then you share the risks with the society. We have to go back to this philosophy. Then we can prevent this kind of event. Unless we still we still be greedy, if we still greedy, try to make money without thinking about social progressive development, we'll be encountering the same problem. So philosophy is also important. I'm sorry for my very poor presentation, but I hope you have a good time. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I wish we had more time. Actually, you also raised many interesting questions. Actually, German Chancellor Merkel still insisting on adopting global, what she calls global charter. Actually, that will be one of the topics to be discussed in Pittsburgh as well. And then Italians talking about global standard, again, which includes some of those philosophical, moral aspect of the issues. But I think on that issue, again, there are many different views. And human beings are made, and born greedy. And if a system allows the born nature to come out, then the world will develop the way it did. So the thing is, you have to have appropriate level of regulation and the supervision. So in the U.S., one mistake U.S. made was Alan Greenspan and others believed in the power of self-markets, self-regulatory capacity. And so even the financial market, you just didn't have enough regulatory and supervisory regime in place. So they, based on their greedy motive, they developed all kind of the instruments using this IT technology. And so what happened? So now in financial sector, I think the key question at this point is what is the appropriate level of regulation and supervision? If you go too far the other way, again, that will cause another problem. And so this is one very critical area to discuss. And then, by the way, since I got involved in this G20 process from the very beginning, so I just want to tell you that the G20 leaders decided that instead of creating new international financial organization, actually there are many scholars who've been advocating what we call International Financial Organization, or Barry Eichengreen and others who keep saying it. But instead of that, or instead of creating Bretton Woods 2, instead of Bretton Woods 1, having major overhaul. But instead of taking that approach, they decided to have existing institutions just reform enough so that it can adapt to the current changing international environment. So Bretton Woods system was adopted in 1944, and the system broke in the early 1970s when the fixed exchange rate system was gone, but still institutional infrastructure is still there for the World Bank and IMF. So we need a very major overhaul in both governance and mandate of these two institutions. And so there's still challenges there. Exactly what Mr. Kawai pointed out, what do you want to do about the overrepresentation of European overrepresentation? What do we need to do about the U.S. veto power? And so forth. Now, so far what's been done is a Singapore agreement last year to have this small the quota adjustment, and the leaders in G20 in London decided to expedite the process. But still, it's a really cosmetic reform. It didn't touch the major issue of representation. So that issue is still there. And then mandate area, again, we're talking about the surveillance. And the leaders say, well, even-handed approach to surveillance. That means that you apply same IMF surveillance, the standard to United States and or other countries in Africa, in other emerging economies. So unless you have even-handed approach and authority, and just surveillance won't work. So how are you going to design that? that is another big the issue remaining. And again, the leaders decided that, well, you elevated the Financial Stability Board, the Forum to Financial Stability Board, and then it's emphasized that it's close cooperation with the IMF. But so far, there's no modus operandi worked out yet. So I would like to see that again put on the agenda in Pittsburgh to come out with a specific way how to these two institutions work closely. So even without creating, since the leaders decided to have the existing system substantially improved, then we should work together. I think G20 is a good forum. And then another thing is, I think G20 should have very good cooperative mechanism with G8. I don't think one should try to replace the other. I would consider G8 or G7 as a caucus in G20. So as long as they work and work for common goal, it will have very strong, very positive synergy effect. In fact, I was very discouraged to see this G8 meeting, L'Aquila this time, particularly finance ministers. If you read the communique carefully, the finance ministers, G8 finance ministers mentioned G20 many times. That reinforce each other. So I would like to see this happen. So we, I don't think you can, ideally you can, scrap everything and go, start all over again, since you cannot do that. So we have to find the best way how you reform this, and how you reform, and then to supplement that, how you can come up with a regional level architecture and the national level. So these are the still challenges remaining. I personally like to see in Pittsburgh, although this may be premature to talk about exit strategies as the main agenda, but the leaders should recognize the necessity of the preparation of exit strategy, which can be implemented after the Pittsburgh meeting. And then next meeting, possibly maybe in Asia, maybe perhaps in Korea in the fourth meeting, if they decide to hold it. Then I think the post-crisis management issue should be the main agenda. And so by reforming Bretton Woods system and the G20 and G8 relationship strengthened, so we can have a better global governance. And within the global governance, this financial architecture also should be. Well, we already have about 10 minutes over, and I'm sure people are hungry. It's about dinner time. But if there are any burning questions, one or two, to be directed to any panelists, maybe we'll just entertain that and then close the session. Are there any questions? Yes, Dr. Allen. Yes. Yeah.
My name is Andrew Young, professor of University. Well, I would like to ask Professor Kawai. Seems to me Dr. Sargon presented a little bit different view on the new financial, architecture design. You said this IMF has been dominated by the U.S. and the Europe, and Asians do not feel the ownership. Okay, I agree. And then the next really viable question is that how we can reallocate the IMF quota. The U.S. and the Europe are really being pressured to reallocate the IMF quota to reflect the Asian view as the locomotive of the world economy and the world economic recovery. So in this sense, G20 process can produce a formidable reallocation formula of the IMF quota. Maybe Dr. Sargon can answer part of this question.
May I? Yeah. Well, frankly speaking, I don't think the IMF would go through a very substantial reform, given the interests on the part of the Europeans and the U.S. I'm not a political scientist, but I can see that it's not very easy for them, for Europeans and Americans, to give up what they have. After all, the IMF, the World Bank, the Bretton Woods institutions were created by them, and I'm sure they want to continue to control, and maybe giving up their power now can invite a very strong political repercussions from their own countries. But I think at least Asians have to talk and have to make Asians' desire on the table and make it clear. But I although I don't think Europeans and Americans are going to change the IMF substantially, but at least Asian voice has to be heard. And once it's done and the IMF doesn't change, then perhaps Asians have to strengthen much more significantly the regional arrangement. And Korea was, in a sense, lucky in being able to get bilateral swap arrangements from the U.S., but not all Asian countries can do that. Indonesia cannot get such a swap arrangement. Many other emerging economies, developing countries, they are just left alone. So, and yet for them, going to the IMF is sort of a political suicide. So either accumulate huge foreign exchange reserves or strengthen regional arrangement. So, if that's sort of clear, I think Asians can pursue, go ahead and strengthen regional financial arrangements with much more confidence. Yeah.
Can I make a comment? Yes. As to the reform of the IMF, I said November was the last chance. Last November, before the G20 meeting, I had information that G20 meeting there's a three party dreaming different dreams, Americans and Britain and continental Europe and emerging economies. So I met our Prime Minister face to face, and I gave him advice. Please team up, emerging economies and continental Europe. You can win the majority, and you can take a leadership. Japan can take a leadership, but Mr. Aso teaming up with U.S. So that's a very bad mistake. So it was a last opportunity. So I still regret the chance.
Yeah.